4.1. It is asking us, how does this resonate with us? With me, the 5 P's. Firstly, I would love to give you an example how these 5 P's tend to exist in my daily life. It speaks about project. It speaks about passion. It speaks about play, peers, and purpose. Purpose do exist because all the time when you enter the classroom, there's a reason why we're entering there, to teach a specific topic. But what we see mostly happening, it's peers. So kids will work together to complete a project, but it's not really what happens all the time. And they're not passionate about it. So in the entire classroom, the only thing that we see that is happening, it's peers working together, no passion about what they're learning. There's no project that they're trying to achieve, and truly, there's no passion behind it. It's just them doing it for the educator to finish. But when you go to a robotics and coding classroom, it's a different thing. Kids come with the passion to want to know. They have this many questions that they want to learn. It's different from my English class and the robotic class. Maybe it's because we use technology there. So every learner wants to create a project. They start to imagine. They start to have questions. They start to reflect. They start to share their projects with their fellow person. And in the process of it, they begin to grow and want to do a different thing from the project. But how do the UJ team uses this? Firstly, they create a passion in you to want to learn, give you programs to want to be there with it. And that passion begins to grow. That you begin to use creative spiral to begin to now imagine what can you create. And as much as you imagine what can you create, they create a platform where you can share with the peers. They created a platform where peers can also review your things, remix your things, and all the catch-up classes that happens. It created that mindset of you could be able to work together. So they made us to imagine, they made us to reflect, they made us to share, they made us to play. But in all of that, there was learning. So the UJ team has also used the 5 P's very well, that they spark the passion of this thing. And even today, I recommend them for what they have done. 4.2. Project, passion, play, peers, and purpose. Those are our 5 P's. If educators could use project and allow learners to learn through project, that will allow learners to keep remembering what they have done. And they could use what we call project-based learning. That will spark the passion to bring back the educators. For an example, educators that are going to term 3, and as they're going to term 3, they're going to teach learners, and learners are going to write creative projects of English. If they can make learners to type or to code their own stories that they've already written, that will bring learners to do projects. That will spark the passion of wanting their stories to be known by a lot of people. If you use Octo Studio, that they will be able to share it, whether it's in TikTok, YouTube, whether it's in WhatsApp, they'll be able to share those stories even with family. And they'll get excited that their stories were shared. But in that moment of time, they will be playing. But this play will be with peers, because they'll work together with peers in order to make sure that this dialogue is understandable. Which now, the purpose of teaching them how to write a dialogue and what the purpose of dialogue is, it will end up being seen by everybody. So it's the same as a creative spiral. If they have to use that, they need to make the learner to imagine things. If I get in and say, write a dialogue about a home, about a conversation between an uncle and a boy, they will begin to imagine what type of conversation could exist, what conversation they have had, and they start to create. They start to imagine different types of uncle. Whether it's an uncle who wrote the Bible and go to church, whether it's an uncle who would love to smoke in the morning, whether it's an uncle who says is very corrupt, they start to imagine those things and they start to create now a dialogue. They start to play around that dialogue while he's having fun and making those jokes, but they're writing a dialogue that they will end up coding. And in that part, they begin to share it. For an example, an educator, after they have done the creative thing, if maybe you do not have the tools to do it in a way of Octo Studio, they can even do a dialogue in front of everybody. Begin to act all of those things. It is play. But that play, it has fun in it, it has enjoyment in it, and they are sharing the knowledge that they have. And you will begin to reflect on them, where to improve, what to do right, what did they miss, and other learners, their reflection will be clapping and making them to enjoy. But that do not stop there. They begin to imagine, how further can we take this? So a learner, if you are an educator, and you want to bring a learner who never understood anything about what you're teaching, if they don't understand A, B, C, D, try and take them outside. Do a scotch that they once played. Instead of putting numbers, put A, B, C, D. Put vowels and allow them to play that game as they do vowels. There are games where they will play and they will be counting numbers. Allow them to play those games and allow them to play and counting and shouting vowels. Create a song. Let them sing a song. Create a dance. Let them wear something that reflects what you want them to learn in that day. In that way, you are bringing the imagination. And if that imagination is brought, then the learner will begin now to learn and give you more of what they understand. 4.3, a very important one. If we have learned all of these things and we do not do anything about them, then what was the reason? How do I start a robotics, coding and robotics class in a township, in a village, where no resources are there? Where resources are there. In my journey of starting coding and robotics, I've learned one thing. Learners love technology. I placed tablet on top of the tables. I had this map that learners had to design and follow the road as if they're giving direction to the robot. And all of them, they were very interested. They wanted to know how it moves. They wanted to know how this thing could be done. But what I have realized is that what I just did, I just made them to imagine. I just made them to want to have projects to create. And from just that map, they started studying the map. They started coding. The hub started beginning to say their names, started showing different things, images. But it moved from there. As they were creating, they began to have fun. They began to play in the classroom. But as they were playing, they began to incorporate the 5 P's, which was passion. They became passionate about it. They came in class in time. I had different posters. Sometimes I'll place these posters on top of the table, and when you pick it up, you needed to code a robot that would say that certain thing. So remember, the hub could speak through their tablet, so they could be able to record themselves as they're saying this thing. Whether they take a left, they could say, a robot could even say left, it could say right. And you will see it at the end of this video where the kids, the robot is moving after they've coded. But here's how we created it. We created a passion of the kids, but mostly we find a way to sustain it. They started having peers, they started playing, they started having a purpose of it. We found one classroom and we made it to be colorful, like your traffic robot. It has all the different traffic lights around it. It had your green, your yellow, your red around the classroom. The floors were different. The place, it was designed for creative minds to think what they could innovate. And through that process, every learner who entered that class had something new to create, from a dancing robot, from a trailer that will pick up things and take them somewhere, from one that looks like a printer that will print out paper, from one that looks like a safe where they will put safe things inside. Some of them, they will bring even objects and they will want to create those objects to move in the same classroom. And what I've learned in it is all the mistakes that we did there, they were not mistakes, actually, they were another inspiration for another innovative project. So if you want to start it and you don't have a tablet, you don't have a computer, bring these kids to the same class, get papers, get objects. Let them start by creating 3D images, 3D pictures. Let them create faces. Let them create robot in 3D. Let them paint them. Because that is creative thinking. That is coding and robotics. That is imagining. And from there, that is a spiral, the sprite that you could be able to use while you code. And you can use that. From there, it could begin to grow now, where learners could do unplug robotics with it and start to give it direction and start to allow it to play with strings and wires. So that's how we start. We start by allowing learners to have fun and to create. The last question. Passion never dies. How can I use what I've learned through this to develop my own personal development? My biggest imagination was to create a platform of teachers and schools that are going to be able to create robotics in the townships, that they will be able to be coding and robotics, that in that circle, they'll be able to go and make competition of themselves. And if it fails, they will retry it again until all schools have coding and robotics in the township. And how can I do that? I could use the 5 Ps, the creative spiral, to imagine how it will look and make sure that I follow it by taking one kid, one school, one educator, and train them. What I've learned from coding and robotics, what I could do is bring all of these educators in one room, workshop them on how coding and robotics is, give them tasks, let them work. We can start by Scratch, we can go to Octo Studio, we can go to VRT, but we'll start with one program. They learn it, we come back to school, we create competition based on that program. Whoever wins, the following time we do another one again. But the good part now is that as the district or the Department of Education is introducing it to schools, that if we become on the turntable, it will be way better, that all of those educators will be having a platform and a place where they could be workshopped on how to teach educators. So I will prefer to develop others, and that's where I'll be also growing my personal development of being able to train educators regarding this subject. And also designing rooms of where these kids can be able to learn coding and robotics, from how they need to be structured, what need to be on the wall, the things that they need there, your 3D images, what can inspire them to think, how to treat coding and robotics class, not like your normal class, how to make sure that this class is way different from your instructional class, but to a class where you just facilitate and see what learners do. And make sure that there's nothing wrong that happens there. Everything that they do, it might be wrong in the eyes of somebody, but it might be leading to a greater subject and a greater innovation. So for my personal development is to train other educators to make sure that learners end up knowing coding and robotics and expanding their brain. Thank you.